Hello everyone, and welcome to the Blue Moon Stories channel. If you like these stories and wish to support this channel, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Now, let's begin.
My name is Dr. Ethan Graves. I'm 52 years old, a respected scientist with a long and successful career in the field of genetics. Without false modesty, I can say that I was considered one of the leading genetic engineers in the United States. Curiosity and strong logic were my greatest strengths. Until 2 years ago, when I was invited to conduct international research for a private company in Russia. Since then, I have begun to doubt logic, and curiosity has been replaced by fear. The mysterious invitation arrived one day in the form of a letter that I found lying on my office desk. On the envelope, there were only these words: International Research Initiative. I opened and started reading. Dear Dr. Ethan Graves, you have been personally selected to join a highly confidential 2-week research expedition in Siberia alongside several world-renowned experts. Due to the sensitive nature of the discovery, no further details could be disclosed. All expenses covered and check for your engagement attached to this letter. The amount on the check was more than I had ever seen in my life. What caught my attention most was one sentence near the end. Preliminary analysis suggests the recovered biological material may represent one of the most important scientific discoveries of the century. Further, there were instructions given in case I accepted the offer. Next morning, there would be a car waiting in front of my house from 8 till 8:30 a.m., and if I don't show up, it would be considered as a negative answer. That all sounded like not just a career, but a whole life-changing opportunity. I didn't think twice. I took 2 weeks of unpaid leave due to an emergency, packed my things, and the next day, I was on my way to the airport. The private jet waited for me at the airport. I was the only passenger. Once at the Novosibirsk Tolmachevo airport, I met the rest of the team. Hendrik Vogel, the German anthropologist, tall and broad-shouldered, carried himself like someone who had spent more time in excavation sites than universities. Greta Solberg from Norway was older than me by perhaps 10 years. Quiet, composed, famous in forensic circles for her work on preserved ancient bodies discovered in Arctic regions. Nathan Lindholm, the Swedish microbiologist, looked exhausted before the mission had even begun. Thin-framed glasses, nervous hands, brilliant eyes. And then there was Sergei Volkov, Russian, our guide and coordinator. He introduces himself as a representative of the company that hired us. He was the head of the mission. He spoke little, but when he did, everyone listened. I noticed a deep sadness in his look. He was too quiet, too serious, professional and cold. Within 20 minutes, we were escorted across the frozen runway toward another aircraft, a much smaller private plane fitted with oversized landing gear. The deeper we flew into Siberia, the stranger the landscape became. At first, there were scattered villages, tiny roads, frozen rivers, signs of life. Then slowly, all of it vanished. Hours passed over endless wilderness, mountains buried beneath snow. The earth below looked untouched, primitive, as if humanity had never put their foot there. Then the research station appeared, a single isolated structure standing in the middle of endless white. Floodlights illuminated walls half buried in snow. The building itself looked reinforced, industrial, almost military. Beyond it stretched only darkness and storm. The inside of the station was surprisingly modern. Sterile corridors, advanced laboratories, medical equipment newer than anything I had used in Cambridge, 5 private bedrooms, a large central living area, fully equipped kitchen, computers humming quietly behind glass walls. Everything suggested enormous funding. That evening, we all gathered in the meeting room, while wind screamed softly outside the reinforced walls. Sergei stood near the monitor screen, arms crossed. For several moments, he simply watched us. Then he spoke. 10 miles north from here, he said quietly. A cave system was discovered after an ice collapse 3 months ago. He pressed a button. Satellite images appeared. Massive frozen cliffs. Deep fractures in the ice. Inside, Sergei continued, our excavation team found something. The screen went black. Then an image appeared, and the room fell silent. It looked like a frozen humanoid being. But wrong. Terribly wrong. The figure was trapped upright within thick, ancient ice. Roughly 6 feet tall. Its posture looked violent, as if it had been trying desperately to claw its way free moments before freezing solid. Its limbs were elongated, its shoulders unnaturally wide. The skin looked pale gray beneath the frost. And the face, I felt my stomach tighten. Its nose was barely visible. Its mouth stretched open in what looked like a frozen scream. Its eyes, God, its eyes were enormous black pits staring outward without reflection, like something that had evolved where sunlight did not exist. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, Hendrik whispered, "That is not human." Sergei did not answer. "Your assignment is to examine it. All findings, research conclusions, test and examination results you will give to me. Tomorrow morning we are going to the site, so I would suggest you get a good rest." Needless to say that night, I didn't close my eyes. I couldn't stop thinking of what we will see the next day. The following morning, we left before sunrise. The storm had worsened overnight. Snow hammered against the vehicles as we crossed the frozen wasteland. Even inside the heated transport, I could feel the hostility of the environment outside. Siberia didn't feel empty. It felt dangerous and threatening. The cave entrance rose from the snow like the mouth of something sleeping beneath the earth. Massive icicles hung above us like sharpened teeth. Wind howled through the tunnels, creating strange low sounds that almost resembled distant voices. As we descended deeper underground, the temperature dropped rapidly. The lights reflected endlessly off the walls of blue-black ice. Then Sergei stopped. He raised his lamp silently. And there it was. The creature. Even expecting it, I nearly lost breath. Up close it was worse. Far worse. It looked powerful even in death. Muscles frozen beneath translucent skin. Hands twisted violently toward the surface of the ice, as if it had been conscious when trapped, as if it had suffered. Greta stepped closer carefully. "I have never seen preservation like this," she whispered. I couldn't stop staring into those black eyes. They looked dry, ancient, empty, yet somehow aware. Sergei drilled carefully through the surrounding ice, while the others prepared extraction tools. No one joked. No one spoke unnecessarily. The cave itself felt too quiet between gusts of wind. Too still. Once the opening was large enough, Nathan extracted tissue samples and sealed them immediately inside sterile containers. Then we left, and not one of us dared to look back. The laboratory became active the moment we returned. Nathan began microbiological screening. Greta analyzed tissue density. Hendrik compared anatomical structures against known ancient hominids. And I started genetic sequencing. At first, the cells appeared dead, perfectly preserved, inactive. Then the sequencing results appeared. I looked at them and my blood turned cold. Part of the DNA was unmistakably human, but the remaining sequences, impossible. I ran the analysis again, then again. The system searched through every available database: animal, bacterial, fungal, prehistoric, marine, extinct species. Nothing matched. No evolutionary relatives. No known origin. It was as if half the genome belonged to something the Earth itself had never recorded. At dinner that night, the atmosphere inside the station had changed completely. Everyone looked tired. Everyone remained quiet, but the tension was filling the air. Nathan broke the silence first. The tissue samples contain microorganisms, but these microorganisms we have never found before. There is no record they ever existed. Ever. Greta looked up sharply. That's impossible. I know, Nathan replied. I also got strange results. Greta said, the tissue doesn't look like it has been frozen for long. There seems not to be standard damages one can find in the tissue that has been exposed to such low temperatures for 100 or 1,000 years. I don't know how that can be possible. Hendrik slowly placed his fork down. The anatomy doesn't belong to any lost civilization I've studied, he said quietly. I found a human DNA, but half of the chains look damaged and unrecognizable, but I'm still searching. I said. No one argued, because deep down they all felt the same, confused, doubtful, and overwhelmed. The next day, Sergei, Hendrik, and Nathan transported the frozen body into a large surgical chamber resembling a morgue. Bright white lights reflected across metal walls. The creature lay motionless beneath sheets of melting frost. Greta began the autopsy. The blade cut downward in a precise T-shaped incision across the torso. Then suddenly, she recoiled violently backward. What the hell? Everyone rushed forward. Inside the body was no recognizable anatomy, no organs, no muscle structure. Instead, thick, green, fibrous masses wrapped tightly around every internal structure like roots, strangling a corpse. The substance pulsed faintly beneath the light. I instinctively removed a sample and rushed it to the microscope. My hands trembled slightly while I adjusted the focus. I leaned toward the lenses and looked in. My entire body froze. Movement. Millions of microscopic worm-like organisms twisted violently across the slide. Alive. Active. This is impossible, I shouted. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. Cells did not survive like this. Not after thousands of years. Not frozen. Not buried beneath ice. Were they hibernating? And now, once unfrozen, they came back to life? Then screaming erupted from the autopsy room. I jumped. Then ran back immediately. Nathan stood pale beside the surgical table. Greta looked horrified. The body temperature is rising, Nathan whispered. The creature's chest moved slightly. Once. Then again. Its skin no longer looked frozen. Moisture dripped slowly across gray flesh. The black eyes twitched beneath half-frozen lids. Then, it blinked. Every person in the room stumbled backward instinctively. The creature's eyes opened fully. Black, glossy, bottomless, staring directly upward. Not confused, not weak, aware. Then something happened that almost made me faint. This thing opened its mouth, and I heard a weak, broken voice. "Pomoni me." The sound it made barely resembled a human voice. Hendrik ran immediately toward the emergency cabinet. His hands shook as he grabbed syringes and anesthetics. The creature's fingers twitched violently against the metal table. "Hold it down!" Hendrik shouted. No one moved. No one dared. With a desperate cry, Hendrik plunged the needle deep into the creature's neck and forced the entire contents inside. For several horrifying seconds, nothing happened. Then slowly, the creature became still again. Its black, crystalline eyes remained wide open, unblinking, locked onto the ceiling above. Watching. Someone brought a rope and we all started tightening its legs and arms around the table. No words, no shouting, just heavy breathing and panic work. Then silence. The kind of silence that settles when every person in the room realizes the world has quietly stopped making sense. Outside, the storm dragged itself across the Siberian wasteland, wind groaning against the steel walls of the station. Thoughts crossed my mind. How isolated, alone, and vulnerable we are. A chill ran through my body. After making sure the creature is unconscious and secured, we rushed to the meeting room. Sergei was already there, sitting at his laptop. He looked at us, and I believe he understood. I could see it on his face. He had expected something like this to happen. He looked tired. His face aged overnight. He stood up slowly and looked at us. Greta spoke first. Her voice broke, shaking. She was trying to control her anger. "Sergei, you know more than you are telling us. Something in here is very, very wrong, and you know what. It's time to start talking because that..." She pointed her finger at the other room. "What the hell is that? Don't tell me it's some 1,000-year-old frozen humans, as obviously it isn't. Not human and not so old." Nathan stepped up. "Listen, Sergei, whatever it is, we know you are holding very important information, and we need to hear them now," I shortly said, as I felt my voice was about to give up on me. "Sergei, that thing said something and it sounded like Russian." Sergei flinched at my words. His eyes widened. He opened mouth like he wanted to say something, but then his head dropped. He covered his face with his hands and started sobbing. We all stood in silence, looking at each other and then at him in disbelief. He slowly placed his hands at the table in front of him and said, "That creature or thing, call it however you want, once was my best friend." We were standing, shocked, puzzled, but no one said a word. Then he continued, "Until 3 months ago, we worked together on the cave excavation, along with many other workers. His name was Dmitry Petrov. 50 years old, married, with 2 daughters. On that fateful day, we were drilling beneath the ice shelf searching for rare mineral deposits. Then the collapse happened." Sergei sat down heavily and rubbed his tired eyes before continuing. The ceiling cracked open. Dmitry and 2 others were below when it happened. Ice fell everywhere. The other two managed to pull themselves from under the ice, but Dmitri got stuck. The heavy, large piece of ice fell on his leg, and he couldn't move. He was crying for help, but since the ice on the ceiling was still making a loud cracking sound, no one dared to go in and help him. Not even me. I stayed near him at a safe distance and was telling him that help was on the way when another deafening cracking sound broke. Then I saw. It looked like something. Some green, thick mass was pushing its way through the ceiling cracks. It fell on Dmitri. He was crying and screaming that this thing was burning him. And I did nothing. When help finally arrived, Dmitri was unconscious. He was pulled out and rushed to the hospital. He stayed there for 3 months in a coma. In the beginning, I was visiting him every day, for a month. I saw changes on his skin, but I didn't think much about it. I was telling myself it was because of the burns he got from the green mass. But not only had his skin changed, I noticed his face and body started to shape in a way I couldn't understand. One day when I came to visit, I was told he'd been transported to another department and the visit had been strictly forbidden. I waited for 2 months, every day praying to hear from the hospital that he is better and visits are allowed again. Instead, one night I got a call from my company. They told me Dmitri disappeared from the hospital. Soon after the accident, the work in the cave continued, and 2 days after Dmitri's disappearance, he was found frozen in the cave. Just like you saw him. Workers refused to touch him. They refused to go into the cave. They called it cursed. They believed something ancient and evil woke up. I was the only one who would go there after work. I would sit there watching Dmitri, making sure he was there where I could see him, talk to him, tell him how sorry I was for being such a coward. And he would listen. I could feel it. Then one day I was called to the director's office. I was told about this mission, and since no one knew terrain better than me, and no one even wanted to go back to the cave, they offered me to lead this mission. And I accepted for one thing. I wanted to know what happened to him, and I wanted to be sure he would be treated with respect. The respect he deserves. Finally, Sergei stood. I have all your reports, samples, opinions. He looked exhausted now. Defeated, almost. The company wanted answers, he said quietly. You have given them answers. Tomorrow morning someone is coming to pick you up. I'm leaving now. What kind of answers? Hendrik asked. Sergei collected the files carefully into the folder. Some things are beyond science, he said quietly. The workers will not return to the cave. And you? I asked. Sergei hesitated. Then quietly, it's too late for me. He turned and walked out of the room, slowly, quietly closing the door behind. We remained seated around the table, silent, each with its own thoughts, while wind screamed outside the station walls. Then somewhere deep inside the facility, a metallic sound echoed faintly through the corridor. Everyone looked toward the hallway at the same moment, because we all realized the same horrifying thing. The creature had been left alone. We rushed to the autopsy room and froze in terror. The room was empty. The main door stood open, letting the cold, icy air push snow into the hall. Sergei was gone. Dmitri was gone too. Like they have never been here. Like they never existed. 2 years have passed since. But sometimes, in the silence of the night, I can still hear Sergei's words. Some things are beyond science.